What are you talking about? Oh, can you give me the background on that one? HP, no, HP. Yep. Yeah.
What's going on? Yep.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to be getting started momentarily. The line, so we're probably going to have to mute the lines as we do the training. Just so everyone's aware, if you are not dialed into the conference call and you're using your computer speakers to listen to the audio portion, if you don't have a microphone, you'll have to chat your questions in using the central group chat function. I'll send out a test chat right now just so you can see where you can type in those questions if you do have them.
One fire at a time, then. That's gonna go on our checklist. That's one of the things we should have on our checklist to make sure that, that's happening. It's good to know, because when I'm looking at those budget lines, I'll know that we haven't been billed. That's not gonna be, we're not gonna be ahead on that. Oh, really?
Everyone, it's now 10 o'clock, so we're going to get started here. My name is Dave Halzer. We are here today to talk about the Department of Revenue Administration Municipal Tax Rate Setting Portal. In particular, today we're talking about the appropriations portion of the program. As I said a moment ago, I see a few of you are using your computer speakers to participate in the audio portion of this. That's certainly fine. Just be aware that if you do not have a microphone on your computer, you'll have to type your questions in if you have any using the Ring Central Meetings group chat. And to do that, just type your question in, and I'll send out a test question once again right now so you can see where that's done. So we like to start off every training session by talking about the tax rate setting process at a high level and going through all the different steps. So it begins with the drafting of your warrant article. Those warrant articles contain the written narrative about your proposed appropriations for the year, and they're represented numerically in your proposed budget, which contains two key pieces of information: your proposed appropriations and your estimated revenues. Proposed appropriations are brought forward at annual meeting, and those that are voted forward are represented on your MS-232 form if you're a town, city, or village, and the MS-22 form if you're in a school district. Estimated revenues are brought forward, and in September they're due, and you have the opportunity to re-estimate them. So the idea behind this being, when you created your proposed budget, you had initial revenue estimates that you then update as we get later in the year. So for towns, cities, and villages, that's the MS 434 form, and for a school district, it would be the. I'm just going to mute some of the lines. I hear some background noise. So after you've re-estimated your revenues, the Department of Revenue calculates tax rates. They do that by taking the difference of your voted appropriations and your estimated revenues. That difference is the amount to be raised in taxation. That's divided by the total valuation of your town, village district, or school district, which is represented on the MS1 form, and for a village district, the MS1V form. Once tax rates are calculated at the end of the year, the information for each entity is brought forward, and you give a final report of your financial information to the Department of Revenue. For a town, city, or village, that would be the MS535 form, and for school districts, that would be the MS25, also known as the DOE 25. These forms contain your final appropriations and revenues for the year and your fund equity information. So obviously this process is cyclical. As you're filing your MS535 for the previous year, you're beginning your warrant articles for the next year. So this process just continues over and over. So today what we're talking about is just the process to convert your information after annual meeting and create your voted appropriations documents. So we do 4 different training sessions throughout the year: budgets, appropriations, estimated revenues, and tax rates. So right now, this is the first appropriations session. And then this is going to be continuing on through June. We'll be doing estimated revenues mid to late summer, and then tax rates begin in September. Those sessions are designed for the towns who go through the tax rate setting process, but we do invite all entities to join us for those training sessions. So today what we're going to cover is, first off, converting your warrant articles to appropriations as voted using what we call the 3 questions. How do you submit that information to the department? What supplemental documentation is required? And how you can print your appropriation forms, whether it's your appropriations as voted or your DRA approved appropriations as voted, which is known as the R form. So I'm going to do some PowerPoint slides, and we're going to do a live demonstration as well. So first I want to talk about converting warrant articles. So when you created your proposed budget, obviously you did so by drafting a number of different warrant articles, providing all the account code detail. Now the system is designed that based on answering 3 questions, your information can be moved forward from your warrant article. So it'll take all that different account code breakdown you provided and move that information forward based on questions you answer. So in this example, we're showing the appropriations conversion process for a town, city, or village. So we have our different warrant articles that we aggregated together to create our proposed budget, which in this case would be our 636, 6C, or 737. So after annual meeting, the software brings all this information forward, and for each warrant article, we're asked 3 questions. Did the warrant article pass or fail? If it passed, was it amended? And if it was amended, was that amendment financial? Meaning, was there an impact to the account codes or the overall amount of the warrant article? Based on how you answer these 3 questions, information automatically gets moved forward, and you can then do that for each warrant article, then aggregate your budget to create an MS-232 form, which you can export to various formats like Word, PDF, and Excel. So the process is the same for schools, except that for schools, obviously you have different forms, different chart of accounts. So in this case, we have different warrant articles aggregated into our proposed budget, which would be the MS-26, 26C, or 27. That information gets brought forward. Once again, we are asked the 3 questions. Did the warrant article pass or fail? Was the warrant article amended? And was that amendment financial? Based on how those questions are answered, information moves forward. You can aggregate your articles into your MS-22 form, which you can export to various formats. So what I'm going to do now is actually log into our development server and show you what this looks like. So I'm going to select a test entity. I'm going to go to my budget home, and I can see that I'm in the appropriations process because it says it up top here in green. I see all my different warrant article types. I won't see my default budget listed anymore. I will see the default budget report, though, if I do want to go into my default budget breakdown, but I will not see an individual line for it. So I have all my different warrant articles here that I created previously during amounts. I have a raise status, a meeting status, and a DRA status, and we'll come back to these three columns in a moment. So the first thing I can do is select a warrant article. And when I get into it, it's going to look just like the warrant article generator. I have my warrant article information up top. I have just now an amount to be raised because the revenues come with it regardless. So we're just dealing with the raise amounts right now. Revenues will be dealt with in the summer. So this was the total amount we proposed for this article. And right now the system's saying in the account code table below, you have no dollars for appropriations as voted. So we can see here at the bottom of the page, we have our standard account code table. We also have this new block of information, which is the annual meeting. Did the warrant article pass or fail? Was the warrant article amended? And was that amendment financial? So we're going to answer these three questions in a moment. Some other options available to you on the annual meeting block are the vote counter. You can enter your yay and nay votes if you choose to. It's just a place to do it. You're not required to. You can also provide notes and information. If you do indicate that your warrant article was amended, you will be required to provide some details about that amendment. So essentially what I can do here is just answer these questions. So I'll answer the first question, did the article pass or fail? If I select that the article passed, the system's automatically going to move my appropriations as voted over. So I need to find the actual account code category that this money resides in. So here it is, in capital outlay. So what the system did is automatically move that value forward. It said this warrant article passed, so therefore that appropriation voted has been approved.
I wonder if these have already been submitted
Warrant failed.
where you could answer the pass fail.
We're getting a little bit of feedback on the line, so I am going to mute the lines momentarily.
So they're not even in.
So if we had selected that the article failed, which I did above, and we go to the capital outlay tab, we see that the appropriations as voted is now changed to 0. So what the system allows us to do is populate that appropriations as voted column based on how we answer these questions. So in this case, we'll say that the article passed. If the article passes, I then have to answer the second question, which was the article amended. And if I say yes, the system's now going to require me to enter an amendment. And I haven't indicated that there was a financial amendment or not yet. So I'm also required to answer the third question now. Was the amendment financial? So a financial amendment would be anything that impacts the total dollar amount of this. So if I said, yes, there was a financial amendment, and I scroll down, the system now has unlocked the appropriations as voted column. So if I go to capital outlay, I'll see the $275,000, but I can now update it. And I can say, no, this has really changed to $270,000. When I select save and recalculate, the system does a few things. Number one, it says you don't match still. You're going to have to change this number to confirm this overall change. And since we send the article as amended, we're going to have to explain the amendment. I can change that and say, and I can provide my comment. And now I can go to save and home. The system has saved that information and now is saying that the article matches and has been passed. I'm going to unmute the line. Were there any questions about what we just covered in the three questions before I cover them a little further? Okay, sounds like we don't have any questions so far. I'm going to go ahead and mute the lines again just to cut down the feedback. So for a lot of your articles, you're most likely just going to be saying, you know, yes, the article passed, no, it wasn't amended. And we're going to just go save and next. So we can just kind of rapid fire go through these. I could say it failed. I don't have to answer any more questions at that point. Save and next. So I can very quickly fire through these different warrant articles as I see fit. Oh, I didn't answer my amended question. So you can see I've gone through a few of my different articles here, and in the raise match field, what this is telling us is, does the total amount that was voted equal the amount that's justified in the account code table? So this is no different than the raise match field you saw when you were drafting your warrant articles during the budget process. The meeting status is just a pass or fail, whether or not it passes or fails at annual meeting. DRA status will be filled out after they do their review of your voted appropriations. Any questions about the 3 questions so far? Okay, I'm going to mute the lines and I'm going to go back over to our PowerPoint, and I'm going to talk about default budgets for a few minutes. A default budget is if you're an SB2 entity, obviously you've created a default budget in the system this year as the process had changed slightly. So now that we're appropriations, you have 2 different scenarios that can play out. You discard your default budget, or you're going to promote it to become your operating budget. The default budget does not go through the 3 questions itself. All the functionality is driven by your operating budget warrant article. So if you pass your operating budget, your default budget numbers just go away, they're discarded. If you fail your operating budget, you have the option to bring your default budget forward, so you can then have that information populate in automatically. So here's a screenshot, and I'll go through an example in the software momentarily, but here you can see a default budget example. So we had an operating budget warrant article. When we indicated that the warrant article failed, the system automatically says, all right, because this is an operating budget and you're an SB2 entity, do you want to apply your default budget now that this has failed? So then you have the option to say yes or no. Most likely you're going to always select yes if you failed your operating budget, so you bring those default budget numbers forward. So what does this look like? If I'm in the system and I go to my operating budget, I could say that this operating budget failed. And when I do that, I get a second question that says, do I want to apply my default budget? So I have the option to basically say yes at this point. When I say yes, now all of my default budget numbers were populated. So you can see that in this case, like in the executive line, my proposed operating budget had $117,740, and my default budget had $114,570. So it's actually going to populate all the information that was on your default budget. Lines are unmuted. Any questions about dealing with your default budget? So now we've gone through, we've dealt with our operating budget, and we did fail it. Let me just go through and wrap up these other articles. So I'll say we'll just fail the rest of them. So now all of our articles have a meeting status. The raise matches look good. So we've got them all set. So at various points throughout this process, you're going to probably want to print your appropriations as voted form in a draft format to get an idea of how your values look. To do that, you have to select the View Calculate button. And the View Calculate button aggregates your appropriations. You're going to want to make this update after every account code change if you want to run your report. And I'll show you what I mean in a second by that. Any report you run prior to submitting your appropriations is going to have the draft watermark, and the draft watermarking is all over the form. And then once you submit it as final, that draft watermark will go away. So the process for View Calculate is no different than what you just went through with creating your budget and your warrant articles. After you create all your warrant articles, you went to View Calculate Budget. It provided you with an aggregated view of your budget that you could then move forward with. So I'm going to bring over the application once again. We can see that View Calculate Appropriations button. When I select it, it's going to calculate all of our numbers and show us a breakdown and say, okay, these are your warrant article numbers, these are your appropriations voted. At any point, I can save and go home, and I can view my appropriations report. Now the report has a draft watermark, and if I export it to PDF, you'll see that it has draft all over it, so it's clear that this is not the final report. So this is one of the most common tech support questions we get. People go in and they make an adjustment to an article and they run the report and they don't see that change reflected. So for instance, if I went to, let's say, this article, the library roof replacement, and I actually said, no, in fact, it passed and it wasn't amended. And if I run my appropriations report, those values won't show up because I need to prompt the system to recalculate after every time I make a large change and I want to view it on a report. So at this point, I just select View Calculate Appropriations. This will have the system recalculate my total appropriations as voted, and then I can rerun my report, and that change will be reflected. So we can see that new article down there. Any questions so far about printing budgets or making updates? Okay, lines are muted again. So then we're going to go through the submission of your appropriations as voted. And there's a deviation here between towns, cities, and villages and school districts. So we're going to cover both. Once you're ready to submit your appropriations as voted, you select the View Calculate Appropriations button, as we just looked at, and you can see an aggregated appropriations as voted form. Just like with the budget process, you have an indicator up top. I'm circling on the screen that red indicator, which shows that all of our raise amounts do not match. So that means we haven't gone through all of our articles correctly. If we have a value that doesn't match, the system will not allow us to go forward until we correct it. So no different, once again, than the budget process. Schools are a little different, and I'll jump over to a school in the software and show it to you. When you go to your appropriations as voted that are aggregated, you'll have to provide a breakdown from elementary, middle, and high school for certain account codes. This is dictated by the Department of Education, and this is important information that they need to capture. The system will not allow you to proceed unless your breakdown is done correctly. School users also have to provide the supplemental schedule. This is another DOE requirement, so you'll have to fill that out as well before submitting your information. So if I go over and I'm in new fields now, I can say, all right, this is great. I want to go View Calculate my appropriations. The system's going to reaggregate my numbers again. I have the opportunity to go to step 2, and here I'll see 2 buttons, Budget Home or Finalize. If you don't see a Finalize, it means your user credentials in the system are not set to the supervisor level, so you'll need to speak to whoever's the supervisor for the MTRSP in your municipality. But in this case, I'm going to finalize. The system says, you sure you want to finalize? I'll say okay. Now my appropriations have been finalized, sent off to the Department of Revenue. And if I print my appropriations as voted form now, you'll see that the watermarks are gone and this is considered a final form. So I want to switch over to a school district and show you how that process differs slightly. So I have to go through and just pass my articles very quickly. I'm just going to do it for one so I can show you the example. So if I select View Calculate Appropriations now in a school district, I'm going to be prompted to provide a breakdown for certain account codes. And if I try to move forward without that breakdown, the system is going to give me a list of the codes that have to be broken down. So in this case, it could be and the system's going to check your math to make sure that the sum of these 3 values equals the total amount that was voted. So you will be required to provide that information. I'm just going to go copy some of these over so I can show you the supplemental schedule. It's just going to take me one moment. And not every account code requires a breakdown. You will see some that are grayed out. That means that no breakdown is required. So now if I go to step 2, I see my supplemental schedule. Once again, this is information only for schools. You'd fill out the supplemental schedule accordingly. If you wanted to fill out the supplemental schedule and have it show on your draft report, you would put in whatever information was applicable and hit the save button. Then if you return to your budget home, it'll appear on your appropriations report. So that's the slight difference for schools. You have to run the breakdown and you have to do the supplemental schedule. And once again, those are both things that are required by DOE. Any questions about submitting your appropriations as voted? All the lines are open right now. Okay. So I want to cover a few last things before we wrap up here. Number 1 is supplemental documentation. After you send in your appropriations as voted and you finalize it, you are not yet done. You still need to provide DRA with some additional documentation, such as your budget is posted, your warrant is posted, your meeting minutes, and your signed appropriations as voted. For SB2 entities, you also need to provide your certified count/ballot minutes, your official ballot, and your deliberative session minutes. Please note all these documents must be signed. If you're curious about what documents you need to upload, just go to your Home tab, go to the Forms and Documents table at the bottom of your home page, and under the budget forms, you'll see a list of all the documents that are required. If you need to upload documentation, just follow the upload attachment link. It'll walk you through the uploads accordingly. So if you have any questions about what you need to upload, just look here and make sure all these are filled out. If you don't see a link for uploading the attachment, it means that it's a system-generated report. So once DRA gets all that information, they'll go through and review your annual meeting information. They'll look at your appropriations as voted, your warrant, your meeting minutes, and make determinations about approving, partially approving, or rejecting warrant articles. It's very unusual that they reject or adjust anything, but it does happen sometimes. When they've completed their review, you'll get an email notifying you that that review is complete and to prompt you to log into the system to download your MS-232R or MS-22R. So what that looks like, I've prepped one for you. I will log into the system, now saying I got this email from DRA saying my appropriations as voted is complete. I could print it right here from the Forms and Documents table where it says DRA approved appropriations, or I could go to the budget homepage where I'll see a view DRA approved or DRA appropriations report. There I can run the report, export it to PDF. And the only difference I'll see here are 2 additional columns, a change amount column, which will indicate a change up or down made by DRA, and then their revised value, which will be just the sum of your appropriations as voted and the change column. So once you get notification this report has been generated, you want to log into the system, export the report, maybe even print it for your records. Any questions so far? Okay, so there's some really great resources on the DRA website, and people always scramble to write down this web address, but I'll let you know that if you go to the help link in the upper right-hand corner of the program, it brings you to the web page that I just referenced, has all the information about our training sessions, quick help sheets, the YouTube video series that goes through these processes. That can all be located here, including the full user manual, which contains details on how to run the entire system, And on the fourth page, it contains the contact information for all the people involved with it, including all the DRA advisors, the DRA supervisor, and everyone here on the technical support team. So once again, to get to that site, you'll just select the help link in the upper right-hand corner of the program.
Yeah.
So you have great resources available to you at DRA. Your advisors, of course, are a great resource. If you're ever curious who your advisor is, it is listed on your homepage right here, along with their name, phone number, and email. The municipal supervisor, Bruce Canor, who used to be a town administrator, has a lot of great experience, and he's a great resource as well. And then anyone here on the technical support team, I'm sure many of you have spoken to Justin in the past. We're here from 8 to 4:30 every day to answer your questions related to portal items. So usually more technical issues. If you have questions about how to create a capital reserve account or something of that nature, we certainly will refer you to your advisor. So I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any. Okay, it sounds like we don't have any questions. So with that being said, I wish you all the best of luck with your annual meetings and converting to appropriations. And if you need assistance, please let us know. Thank you.